There we are. How are we doing, guys? As you can see, I am Kent. There we go. It's fixed.
Oh, look at that.
This is Kent.
I love technology.
Another round of who we are. Today, I'm going to be going over the contract. And now to say I'm going to be going over the 1 to 4 family contract is a lie, because it would take a whole lot more time than what we're developing to be able to give you that. So we're going to be going over the first 5 paragraphs of the 1 to 4 family contract. And arguably the first 5 paragraphs is where the majority of your issues, infighting, arguments, misunderstandings come into play. So they're absolutely by far, in my opinion, some of the most important paragraphs. It's all important, but you're going to see a lot in this. If you understand the first 5 paragraphs, it'll make your life a lot easier. After today, next week, we'll continue on with another section. We'll get it done before it's done. Kent, let them know what you're going to be going over real quick.
So once we get done with that, I'm going to give you a little piece of advice on that before I move on. The piece of advice I'll have for you is take notes while Andrew's talking, because there's going to be things you're going to need to know about. Then go download the contract, read it again with a highlighter, and highlight the things that you go, I don't think I really understand what they're trying to say here. And then maybe next week when we get on, we'll have a little quick question and answer over those first 5 paragraphs going, yeah, I mean, because, we're going to go pretty fast and a lot's going to be said to you. And the first 5, like Andrew said, is very important. So take notes, download the contract, get a highlighter out, read the whole thing every night for the next 21 days, and you'll know it inside out, upside down, and backwards, and be an expert. So that's what we need to do. Then when Andrew's done, I'm going to come in and talk to you a little bit about really working your sphere of influence and creating. I want you guys to learn how to create money today. Not worrying about spending money to try to generate leads out on the internet. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. What I'm saying is the fastest way for you to get a dollar bill in your pocket is to work your sphere of influence. And I'm going to show you some pretty interesting things about that once we get done. So, Andrew, the floor is yours, my friend.
Absolutely. So what we're going to be doing, guys, right now, we're going to be going over the contract. Make sure you guys understand what we're talking about. And remember, Ken and I have probably been, between the two of us, I'm going to say a rough guesstimate, 1,000 fights with other agents and brokers about who's right, who's wrong, how it works. Read it 1,000 times, and every time I read it, I find another thing. So anyone tells you I've memorized this contract and I know everything doesn't know anything, because every time you read it, you're going to find something new. You're going to see something that's changed. So right now we're going to switch over to the contract. So hopefully we can see the contract, because I know we've got Brenda doing some magic on the back end. The greatest thing about Texas, I'm licensed in Texas, New Mexico, and Georgia, and I will say Texas, the greatest thing about Texas, besides being the Lone Star State, is the contracts are probably the easiest things ever made. They are made so you can understand very clearly, very simply how to fill them out. Paragraph 1, insanely simple, guys. Parties of this contract, blank, parentheses, seller. Seller's information goes there. You want to make sure that is the correct information of who they are. Now, the difficulty will be, were they married since they purchased the home? Or have they been divorced since they purchased their home? Did they change their name since they purchased the home? All these conversations have to be had before we know who the correct person in there. Because if their name is, Sarah Smith, but when they bought the house, they were Sarah Jones, that's going to be a question for the title company when it comes up. What happened? Did they get married? Why is their name different? And all those things.
Can I ask you a question there? Because I've heard something over the years, and I want your opinion of it. Is that as you're going through that and you don't really know that, when you're writing that first offer, is it okay to put owner of record in there?
In theory, yes. What I would recommend, and the problem with that, the problem is, and why this becomes an issue is, who writes an offer? The buyer, right? So sometimes the buyer doesn't know who the seller is. Sometimes what might be best if you're the buyer's agent is leave it blank and let the seller write it in. They're going to have to fill it out anyway. If you don't know what it is, let them say who it is. In the MLS, you should have the listing agent should have put the correct way ownership in there. If they did not, and sometimes they will put owner of record, especially if it's a bank foreclosure or anything like that. If I'm a buyer's agent, I've seen it left blank and let the seller fill it out when they're accepting the offer. I've seen the problem with owner of record is we have to scratch it out and put the correct thing. So if you don't know, sometimes I'll just leave it blank. And I don't know if it's the best answer, but I think it works. Now, if you represent the buyer, you better be able to fill out the second blank because that's the buyer. Make sure, and what I do, even if they're close friends of mine, I will say, spell your name how you want me to put it down. You know, if your name's Nick and you go by Nick, or Nicholas and you go by Nick, you know, how are we putting this down? Do you want a middle initial included in there? Do you want a full last name, middle name in there? How do you want to take the title to this property is how you're going to put the buyer information in here. So you need to make sure it's correct in how you're doing it. Paragraph 2 is the improvements. And this is where B, C, and D creates a whole lot of confusion. A is a little bit more simpler, but you've got to make sure you're correct. Always go to the central appraisal district. Make sure you're putting the correct lot, block, and subdivision or addition, or there's a very good chance you're going to have the title company researching the wrong property. You need to make sure you do your due diligence in this. Put the lot number, the block number, and the address in there. Now, city of blank, that is the city in which you're in. The county of blank, the county in which you're in. Known as, and it tells you address and zip code. So you're going to put the street address in the first line and the zip code in the second line. Okay, it does not require the city and state because we already know it's the city of and the state of Texas. So we don't have to put that in there again because it's there. Improvements.
Hey, Andrew.
Yeah.
So I can tell them a little story here real quick, and this is as true as you'll ever be. Is I had a new build. It had 2 lots sitting next to it. When they subdivided the property, those 2 lots were together. Ooh. The builder thought that he split them. We purchased the house and had it built, and our buyer had, in their mind, owned both lots.
Yeah.
It was ugly.
I'll bet, because what was the legal description they bought?
Well, they bought both of them. So, yeah. So, it wound up with attorneys and all that crazy stuff. But the bottom line was, you know, the seller of the new build was not very well educated. And then the buyer's rep thought she understood it because it appeared to be right because we had both lots and that's what it said on the MLS sheet, right? Wow. And then it comes down to it and the builder's like, I can't give you up a $70,000 lot on the $250,000 house, you know? Wow. That's crazy, man.
It is. And that's the thing is, you know, we've come across, you know, because of these contracts, people not reading them and understanding what they say, it's created a whole lot of issues and things. And when we get into things like homeowners associations and those paragraphs, everyone's got horror stories in those things. And we'll get into some of those. Paragraph 2B and paragraph 2C, insanely important to understand. Now, the way Texas works is pretty simple. If they want you to read something for sure, they're going to bold it. Yeah. If they really want you to read it, they're going to bold it and underline it. So we need to read this paragraph together. Improvements, the house, garage, and all the other fixtures and improvements attached to the above described real property, including without limitation, the following permanently installed and built into items. This is where a lot of conversations or a lot of misunderstandings come into play. And we need to understand that, and we'll get into that after I come back and read it. If any, all equipment and appliances, balances, screens, shutters, awnings, wall-to-wall carpeting, mirrors, ceiling fans, attic fans, mailboxes, television antennas, mounts and brackets for television and speakers, heating and air conditioning units, security and fire detection equipment, wiring, plumbing and lighting fixtures, chandeliers, water softener system, kitchen equipment, garage openers, door openers, cleaning equipment, shrubbery, landscaping, outdoor cooking equipment, and all other property attached to the above described real property. Now, some of these are brand new with the new contract that just went into effect April 1st. Included in that is the security and fire detection, the security system. You know, the question is going to be, is the Ring doorbell permanently attached? The question is probably most likely it's been screwed into the property and attached electronically with wires to the property. That means you don't get to take it with you unless you put it in paragraph 2D, exclusions. Huge issues always come into play is appliances are not appliances can be, but mainly it's going to be carpeting, mirrors. It says very clearly that the mirrors stay, but only if they're permanently installed. So if you go into a bathroom, a lot of bathrooms now, they've taken out the permanently installed mirror that was glued to the property and put in a framed mirror that looks cute. Well, framed mirror hanging on a nail is not a permanently installed fixture or improvement to a property. It is the same as any other wall hanging that's on the property. So when you're going through the house and you see a house, you see in the bathroom mirrors that are not attached, are they included? Are they not? This is a conversation you want to have and make sure you know. If you want to make sure they're staying, you need to put them in the non-realty addendum that you include later. These come into effect a lot. Wall mounts, mounted brackets for television and speakers is a huge issue. We see it way too often. If there's a TV on the wall, have that conversation. What are you doing with this TV? I'm taking it with me. Are you leaving the mounts? Of course not. They are included. If you don't have them in exclusion D, you sold them with the property. And it becomes a huge fight because the problem is you're going to take the wall mount and you're going to leave a nasty hole or you're going to leave a nasty repair job.
Right.
And it's a huge fight that we come across. And every time I fight with myself, well, it's a $75 wall mount. Well, it's a $100 drywall repair. So leave it and go buy a brand new one.
Right.
It's just a huge fight that's always going to come up. I have literally seen horror stories where an owner forgot that the rose bushes in the backyard were planted by his mother. The night of closing, went to the house and started digging up the rose bushes and was almost shot by the new owner because what are you doing in my backyard with a shovel? Just some crazy stuff can happen. You've got to have that conversation at the listing presentation with your seller, being like, listen, anything in this property screwed or glued to this property stays. Is that an issue? If it is, we need to address it now.
So Andrew, I got you a story here, bud. Okay, so you won't believe this one, right? So in the house, there's an acrylic case mounted to the wall that has Matchbox cars in it.
Okay.
All right. So based upon my interpretation of the contract is that the acrylic case stays, but the Matchbox cars don't.
Right.
Because they can be removed. Right. So the buying agent at walkthrough took all the Matchbox cars home.
Oh.
Yeah. Deal with that one, my friend.
That's called theft.
But in that, the interpretation in her mind was it's attached to the wall.
Yeah. No, absolutely. You know, similar thing. You know, in this where it comes into play, we had a situation one time years and years ago where the buyer's agent was walking through the house with their buyer. The seller was there, and the seller was like, "Hey, I can't keep all this stuff. I'm going to have a huge yard sale." And she's like, "Well, what are you doing with this telescope?" She's like, "Well, I'm selling it. It's like $50." Like $50, perfect. My kid's having a birthday. It's exactly what he wants. They made the transaction right then and there. So the seller's walking out with the buyer's agent's walking out with a telescope. The buyer freaks out. "Why are you stealing the telescope from me? That's mine. It's in the house." Went to the broker, refused to work with the agent, fired the agent, demanded to get a whole new agent because his agent was not looking after their needs. All over a $50 telescope. You just never know what's going to affect people's minds in these type situations. So any of those things stay. Now, accessories in paragraph C, there's some weird stuff in here we need to go over. Window air conditioner units, we've all seen them. They stay. Most people can't figure that out. Stove, fireplace, screens, curtains and rods, blinds, window shades, draperies and rods, door keys, mailbox keys, above ground pool. Above ground pool stays with the property. Swimming pool equipment and maintenance accessories, artificial fire alarms, security systems that are not fixtures and controls for garage doors, entry gates, and other improvements and accessories. Controls include seller's transferable rights to the software and applications used to access and control improvements or accessories, and hardware used solely to control improvements or accessories. That bottom line that has to do with the controls is all new after April 1st. And it's very important to make sure we understand because so many things nowadays are smart devices. You know, I sold a home recently where the stove was a smart stove and had a remote control. If the seller took that with them, the buyer's in a world of hurt. So we need to understand all these accessories stay. Now, notice in improvements, it says very clearly all built, permanently installed, and built-in items. Accessories does not have that. So your curtain rods, your curtains, your blinds, your window shades, all of those stay. And that is always a huge fight. We see it time and time again. You know, window air conditioner units stay. So if I'm going through a house and there's a window air conditioner unit in every single room, I come back later and they're all gone. You owe me all those air conditioners back. And that is something that sellers need to understand early on. Same with curtains and curtain rods. It's always a fight, which I've never understood. I have had the misfortune of having to go curtain shopping with my wife. You can't go to a store and just buy curtains. You have to measure every window to make sure they fit. The chances of your curtains that are measured for this house being able to be used in the next house are 1,000,000,000 to 1. Leave the curtains. Go get new ones and make your life a whole lot easier. But if you've not had that contract with your client, the seller is going to freak out when you tell them they can't take their curtains. You know, the above ground swimming pool, I mean, I've talked to multiple licensed agents who've been licensed agents for a long time who still don't understand and have not read that and realize it was like, well, it's outside. It's not included. It's in the contract as an accessory. It stays with the property. And it becomes a huge, huge fight. If any of those items in either B or C the seller wants to take, they have to be handwritten in paragraph 2D. Exclusions. The following improvements and accessories will be retained by seller and must be removed prior to delivery of possession. That's where you'll write those in. If you're taking the controls, if you're taking the blinds, if you're taking the air conditioner window units, if you're taking the wall mounts, whatever it is, you're allowed to take whatever you want as long as you put in paragraph 2D that you're taking it with you. If not, if you forget to put it in there and this contract gets signed, it's done. You have sold it. It doesn't belong to you anymore. You know, I use this horror story. It happened to me. I bought a house, the house that I live in. Seller asked for 2 days temporary residential lease to move out. I agreed as long as he left me the the front porch furniture and had the carpets professionally cleaned. He agreed. Everything was great. I called him up, said I just wanted to make some measurements. Do you have a problem with that? No. I go to measure the house. Every light fixture in the home was on a trailer bed. He had replaced every light fixture in the home and replaced it with a tiny little circle light fixture. And I had to go and be like, not only is this not cool, you now have to go put every one of those back. I bought them. And having explained that to him, luckily, he was still there when I did it. He had ripped my mailbox out of the ground and taken that as well. And having had that conversation of, listen, I bought these when I bought the house. You don't get to take the light bulbs. You don't get to do those things. And a lot of the light bulbs nowadays are smart light bulbs that you can take care of with Alexa and things. So making sure how it's done, it's a difficult task. So very much important. You've got to go through this with a fine-tooth comb with your seller. Is any of these going to be an issue? And nothing's an issue until it's an issue. Reservations of oil and gas, mineral rights, timber, or other interests is made in accordance with an
Can I say something on D real quick?
Yes.
Okay. So guys, here's it. So because I think a lot of you that are going to be watching us talk about this are going to be relatively new, in a position where it may be some of your first listings. All right. Here's the thing. If you look at it and it throws up any little red flag in your mind and you go, I don't know if that's actually attached or not attached. If you don't know, it probably is, right? So just go ahead and put it in exclusions, right? I mean, there's no rule that says if something wasn't supposed to be in exclusions, there's a problem, right? If there's a red flag in your mind, just put it in there.
And remember, the attached section is just for the improvements, not the accessories. Right. And that's where people's like, well, wasn't included in the attached. It didn't say it wasn't permanently installed. Well, drapes aren't permanently installed. Rods and curtains aren't permanently installed. That's why they're in the accessory section. No key is permanently installed, or else it wouldn't be a key. So absolutely, if you any doubt and your seller wants it, put it in D. Just make your life easier. If you're at a listing presentation and your seller says, "Listen, I'm taking this light fixture with me," take it down now. Don't put yourself in a situation where you have to remember to put it in D later, because
make sure it's not in an MLS picture.
Yeah,
make sure it is not in an MLS picture.
Well, more than anything, make sure you're not putting yourself in a situation that you have to remember to exclude it later. Get it out of there, make it done, because I guarantee you're going to get your contract and you're going to be excited and you're going to be so happy. You're not going to remember, oh, the light fixture doesn't stay in the bedroom or in the whatever room. It's just not going to happen. And we as a society, if you tell us we can't have something, we want it. And if you say that light fixture doesn't stay, that is the only thing they're going to want. We had a deal where the owner had 2 fridges, a fridge in the kitchen and a fridge in the garage. And she said, listen, I'll leave the fridge in the garage and I'll put it in there, but I want to take the other fridge with me. Of course, the house sold so quickly, we didn't have an opportunity to switch them out. One thing, the buyer demanded the fridge that was in the kitchen to be staying in the property. Seller to this day is angry that she was not able to, that she had to leave her fridge, paid above asking price for the house, assumed the solar panel note. Only thing she said to us since the sale of the home is they stole my fridge. At the end of the day, she made well over asking price to buy a brand new fridge of the exact same kind of model. But at the end of the day, what gets in people's minds is going to stay there. And the buyer, listen, I'll buy this home, I'll pay whatever I have to, but I want that fridge. Because we told them they couldn't have it, they had to have it. It became one of those things. Just don't put yourself in that situation where it will continuously happen, because it will happen over and over again, and it is a nightmare. Paragraph 3, guys, A plus B has to equal C. If there's what that means is the cash portion of the sales price plus the sum of all financing has to equal the total sales price. Where this becomes an issue is we change the sales price back and forth in a negotiation, but we don't change paragraphs lines A and B to match. You've got to make sure the cash portion and the sum of financing equals the sales price. If this happens in negotiations, you just have to fix it. Now, financing, will it be third-party financing, loan assumption, or seller financing? Mark one of those boxes, and we'll take care of that in addendum class later. Paragraph 4, brand new addition after April 1st, whole new thing, which is really great. It's going to let us know right away if there's any leases on the property, either residential, fixture, or natural resource. Great addition to this contract. Right away, it's thrown up in your face. There's a lease we have to worry about. So what it says, except as disclosed in this contract, seller is not aware of any leases affecting the property. After the effective date, seller may not, without buyer's written consent, create a new lease, amend any existing lease, or convey any interest in the property. Check all applicable boxes. So if there's a residential lease, which means you own a property that has been leased to a tenant, you have to mark this box. Property is subject to one or more residential leases, and the addendum regarding residential leases is attached. Again, we'll be going over those addendums in another class. Fixture leases. Fixture lease on property is subject to one or more fixture leases. For example, solar panels, propane tanks, water softener system, security system, and the addendum regarding fixture leases is attached. So if you have solar panels on a lease, you mark it on paragraph 4B. We need to know that. We need to know what we're getting into as a buyer. Now in El Paso, you don't see this too often. Dallas, how often are you seeing the natural resource leases, Ken? Do you see those very often?
So yeah, we have a natural formation that runs around between between Dallas and Fort Worth that is a gas mecca.
Okay.
So on one side of it, you will have leases in standard subdivisions with small little tiny lots. And then you'll be on the other side of it. Nobody would even know what you were talking about.
Yeah, so it's definitely depends on where you are. This has to do if you have any kind of lease for mineral, water, wind, or other natural resources affecting property. So if you have a wind turbine on your property, and it's being leased out to a utility company, you have to disclose that. You have to mark either the seller's delivered to a buyer a copy of the national resource lease, or seller has not delivered the buyer the copy of the natural resource lease. Seller shall provide a copy of the natural resource leases within 3 days after the effective date. Buyer may terminate this contract within blank days after the date the buyer receives all natural resource leases, and earnest money refunded to buyer. But again, buyer just has to know what they're walking into and what they're getting.
So I'll give you a piece of there. So okay. We have in the area I live in, we have several co-ops. All right. So if you have solar panels or you have a wind turbine, you have to double check and make sure where that power is actually being sold, because it may not be being sold to Encore.
Yeah.
If you're in that, then and that power is being sold to Hilco or one of these small co-ops, you have to deal with that, and you have to address the fact that even though they own the fixture, the power is still being sold to somebody. It's a wind turbines and solar panels are crazy.
They are, and they're just a difficult process we have to work with and understand, and it's a difficult process for us to do.
Well, the problem is the people that are selling them to you don't understand it.
True, and sometimes, not all, I absolutely want to say, but sometimes we'll say things that aren't 100% accurate.
Correct.
In the sale of the property or the lease of them. Paragraph 5, guys, by far the most important paragraph in this contract that we need to make sure we understand and have a good understanding. Paragraph 5 merges with paragraph 5 and 23 of the old contract. It's putting earnest money and termination option together. Something I fought very hard when it was being discussed, but has actually become really kind of great, and we'll go over that and explain why. Deliver earnest money and option fee within 3 days after effective date. Buyer must deliver to blank. Now, this blank is the title company. Do not put a name there. That is the name of the title company, not a person. It is the escrow company that you are using as escrow agent at, and now put the address of that escrow company. Blank dollars as earnest money and blank dollars as option fee. Now, there are going to be two separate figures there, one for earnest money, one for option fee. Two completely different things. Earnest money and option fee shall be made payable to escrow agent and may be paid separately or combined into a single payment. Buyer shall deliver additional earnest money of blank to escrow agent within blank days after the effective date of this contract. This is for if you choose to have additional earnest money at a later date. Don't see it too often in El Paso. I don't know about what's going up in Midlothian.
Very, very rarely.
Yeah, I think it's more for going to be used like we're going to give you a small earnest money and then give you more after option if we so choose to go that route.
And if we're trying to like rezone the piece of property we're buying, we might need time to go to city council, and so we'll say, hey, we'll throw a little bit more up because it got pushed at city council or whatever.
Exactly. Now, paragraph 5A2 is all about timing, and this is where the math comes into play. Remember, execution date of a contract is the start date of all contracts, but it's date 0. Okay, so when we start counting the day after execution. So if the last day to deliver the earnest money, option fee, or the additional earnest money falls on a Saturday, Sunday, or legal holiday, the time to deliver earnest money, option fee, or the additional earnest money as applicable is extended until the end of the next day. That it's not a Saturday, Sunday, or legal holiday. So again, how many days do we have? We have 3 days. So if I execute a contract on Wednesday, that means I have Thursday, Friday, Saturday's a holiday, or Saturday, Sunday. I have until end of close of business Monday to deliver earnest money and option money to a title company. Okay, that is an important thing to understand, because it used to be that was the requirement for earnest money. Option fee had the straight 3 days, no additional days allowed. Now that they're both being given to the title company, the same is required. So you have to remember, if it's Wednesday, they've got Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Now, we just recently had a holiday where Monday was a holiday. You would have had until that Tuesday to deliver earnest money title company and earnest money and option. So important thing to understand and to figure out. The amount of escrow agent receives under this paragraph shall be applied first to option fee, then to earnest money, and then to the additional earnest money. This is huge. And the reason this is huge is I will explain why a little bit later. But just remember that, and I'm going to explain it in the next paragraph. Buyer authorizes escrow agent to release and deliver option fee to seller at any time without further notice or consent from buyer, and releases escrow agent from liability at delivery as the option fee to seller. Option fee will be credited to the sales price at closing. This is kind of a cool thing that has changed. In the old contract on paragraph 23, you could choose it would or would not be credited at closing to the buyer. That has gone away. It will now always be credited back to the buyer at closing. So that's kind of one less thing that we have to fight about, which is kind of nice for us. Termination options. So this is now talking about the option fee in general, or option period. For nominal consideration, the receipt of which seller acknowledges, and buyer's agreement to pay the option fee within the time required. Seller grants buyer the unrestricted right to terminate this contract by giving notice of termination to seller within blank days after the effective date of this contract. option period. Now the nominal consideration is the option fee. You cannot have an option without paying for it. So there has to be an dollar amount there. It cannot just be blank and for so many days. Now the number of days is negotiable between the buyer and the seller, how many they're going to give them.
So Andrew, something there that I think people need to understand is that in the state of Texas, the attorneys have come to consider that nominal is a minimum of $10.
See, and I've heard different numbers, so I don't like to throw it because I've heard someone say $3 is nominal.
It won't. But where you get a problem with it is when you say, "Hey, we need to bring the roofer out and we need to extend the option period, and we're going to give you $1."
Yeah,
you just give them 10. If you don't, go to Andrew as your broker, he'll give you the $10. Let's just not have that fight.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where, who decides? The problem I have with that is who decides, $10 is better than $1 when you're dealing with a $500,000 house. Yeah. It's such an arbitrary figure anyway. It's above me. It's above my pay grade as far as it goes.
It's attorneys and the guys we don't want to talk to.
Exactly. Notices under this paragraph must be given by 5 p.m. local time where the property is located. So that's you have to give notice on the end of that date at 5 o'clock. At 5:01, your option period is expired. You have no right to have any conversation after that. Your option's over. If the buyer gives notice of termination within time prescribed, the option fee will not be refunded, and escrow agent shall release any option fee remaining with escrow agent to seller, and earnest money will be refunded to the buyer. Failure to timely deliver earnest money. This is where the earlier thing is important. And this came about a couple years ago, and I think it's one of the best additions that the contract had because it gives the seller a little bit of protection. If buyer fails to deliver earnest money within the time required, seller may terminate this contract or exercise seller's remedies under paragraph 15 or both, or providing notice to buyer before buyer delivers the earnest money. Now, going back to the earlier conversation, if the option money is credited first, I'm using arbitrary numbers, let's say a $500 earnest money and $100 option money just to make our life simple. So it's $600 owed. If I only write a $500 check and give it to the title company, $100 of that check is going towards option money, and I've only got $400 towards my earnest money, which means I have not delivered earnest money as required. If within the 3-day timeline you have not given me the other $100 in earnest money, then you have not fulfilled your end of the obligation. And in this current market, I can terminate this contract and accept another one. So it's very important to make sure whatever amount of money you agreed to give, you have given, because the seller can terminate if you have not given a full money. And even if you designate, oh, this is all earnest money, not option, it will be credited first to option and then to earnest money, no matter what. Extremely important thing to understand in that regard. Failure to timely deliver option fee. If no dollar amount is stated as the option fee, or if buyer fails to deliver the option fee within the time required, buyer shall not have the unrestricted right to terminate the contract under paragraph 5. So if you don't turn in option money, you just don't get an option period. The contract still applies. Time is of the essence of this paragraph, and strict compliance of the time for performance is required. That means I don't have to give you additional time if needed. It's very important to understand in these regards why earnest money and option money has to be delivered very timely. Get that.
I noticed that's in bold print also.
Go ahead, Ken.
I said, I noticed that's in bold print also.
Yeah. Time and the words "time is of the essence" is a legally binding term. It is an extremely important term saying, listen, this is how it works. I've had multiple deals where a buyer's agent has called me at 5:30, like, hey, we need to figure out what we're going to do. What we're going to do is continue on with the contract we've got. We're good. Yeah. And a lot of times the issues that come in is a buyer's agent will send an amendment to a seller's agent and not hear anything and be like, well, you didn't give me an answer. Unfortunately, no answer is an answer. It's no. Yeah. If the option period expires and we've not come to an agreement, we have an agreement. All we've not agreed on is changing the agreement that we have. I think that's the biggest misunderstanding so many agents have in these deals is, listen, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you want, if we don't come to an agreement, you have two choices at 459. You either accept the contract as is or you terminate. And if you don't terminate, you've accepted the contract as is. And that's a huge issue that a lot of people can't fathom. Is like, listen, we still need to figure this out. No, we don't. We're moving forward with the contract we have. And you had a right to terminate and you didn't use it. That is the main stuff for the first 5 paragraphs. There's a lot more, and definitely there's going to be stuff in there that you're going to see and think about and have questions on, especially paragraphs 2, B, and C. That creates so many issues, so many horror stories in our transactions. Think about it, talk about it. Let's see what we've got next week. At this time,
one of the things I would say here, Andrew, really is the fact that, first off, read the contract. I mean, if you come to me and say, Kent, I have all these issues. I'm only going to ask you 3 things. 1, do we represent the buyer or do we represent the seller? And number 3, what does it say in the contract? Because I don't care how emotional it gets, nothing else matters. And so if you can't, you have to be the voice of reason in these things, but you also have to be professional enough to go, hey, Mom, you need to let me go over this contract with you. I know you trust me. I know you do that. I know you love me, but you need to understand this, because there's nothing worse than getting down the road. And because somebody was your buddy and you didn't think that you need to go over the contract and then it gets ugly. I mean, those are bad things and there's no reason for it. You're a professional. Now I'm going to tell you that leads directly into what I'm going to talk about. Okay. So I'm going to tell you, when you do a presentation for anybody, I don't care, your mom, your dad, your cousin, your brother, you show up looking professional. You bring every piece of content you take to anybody that you got to lead off of that you didn't know. Right? They may not ever want to look at it, but you deliver. And the reason you deliver is this, is because they're going to go to work tomorrow and be standing at the water cooler and go, you won't believe what my daughter did. She came in and gave me a full presentation on the house I was going to let her sell anyway. Right? What does that do? That creates an idea that you're the person that they would like to do business with in the future, right? So I think I can share my screen. So
you're up now, so go ahead.
All right. So if it doesn't share, just tell me and I'll just come talk to you. But I think I can do it. All right. So let's do this and let's do this.
Yep, we got it.
Oh, look at that. Okay. So this is my all-time favorite slide. Okay. And so here, let me hide. I don't know how to hide it now that I'm there. But okay, so lead generation will make you wealthy, guys. Everything else is worth $10 an hour. So if you want to live in ride around in the 500 SL Mercedes convertible, then you got to go generate some leads. If you're okay with just putting signs up for other agents in the office and hanging lock boxes for them, then you can just hang around the water cooler and drink the free coffee at the brokerage, right? So what we're going to talk about today is this: is that how's the fastest way for you guys to get a paycheck in your pocket, right? Because right now, especially if you're relatively new, you spent time, you spent money, you bought MLS dues, you paid, association dues, you've done all these things. And, either if you have a spouse, they're going, well, when are you going to make some money? Right. And so what we want to make sure is we get you in a position to make you money as fast as you can. Now, let's make this very clear. I don't consider this to be the only way. I consider this to be the fastest way. All right. So lead generation will make you wealthy. I'm going to talk to you about these 3 things you see on the side: calls, notes, pop buys, but we're going to take it a little deeper than that. All right. So the first thing I'm going to talk to you about is your database. All right. If you have not created a database yet, and a database is a simple thing. A database is 100 to 300 people that know who you are, who they are, and they, at some point in time over the next month or two, realize you're actually in the real estate business. Okay. Just because they know you and we haven't let them know that you're in the real estate business, that's not what I consider a database. All right. But what I want you to think about this is, right, is, I hear all people come in, bring lead ideas to me all the way. Ken, I'm going to buy these Zillow leads, or I'm going to get on and, I'm going to work these splash pages out on. And I'm like, okay, that sounds really good, but, if you just think about it, or my favorite one is I'm going to go farm a neighborhood. All right. Well, farming a neighborhood is something I highly recommend you do, but I highly recommend you have another way to increase income, because that's a long way to make money. Okay. The reason they call it a farm is because we gotta go in there and till the soil. We got to plant the seeds. We got to water, and none of that happens the first time we send out that card. All right. So make that real clear. All right. Well, so let's say you get 100 contacts in your database. I'm using easy numbers, right? Because I think it makes so much sense. So you got 100 people in your database and those people all know who you are. You've had some conversation with them. You know them from the soccer practice or dance practice, or or them, or they're your best friend. They all need to be in there, right? So that's your initial 100 contacts. So let's say every person out there, even in the pandemic, I think it was kind of accurate. It dropped a little then, but it's back up now. Is everybody we know is going to talk to somewhere between 20 and 50 people a day. I don't care if it's at the dance at school, or I don't care if it's at their job. In some way, shape, or form, they're going to interact with that many people. All right. So if you have that, get 100 people interacting with 30 other people a day. What does that mean to you? Okay. That means about 3,000 potential referrals. Now, what we got to do, and I'm going to show you how to do that here in a minute, is create the activities. So when those 100 people are out there interacting and somebody hears the word real estate, nephew got pregnant, they need a bigger house, whatever, in their mind, you've captured enough piece of that in their mind where when they hear real estate or they hear the idea of somebody moving, all they can see is your picture, your face in their mind. Okay. And I'm going to show you how to do that as we go forward. So just think about it. These people are our eyes and our ears out in the market. Here's one thing that I really want people, and if you can grasp this is a big deal, guys. You need to realize that you don't want to sell these people or buy or sell them a house. You want these people to be your eyes and ears in your market, out there talking to people, bringing the other ones in. Now, if they do decide to sell it, yes, we want that to happen, because life happens. We all know that. But the idea is not to try to list or sell their house. The idea is to get them to become your army out in the marketplace, listening for the potential referral that might pop up. So let's say we do that 5 days a week, right? What does that mean to us? That's about 15,000 potential referrals a week, right? And I know that sounds like a really big number, but the reality of it is, if you've done the things properly, then this is the most realistic number you'll ever see. All right. So we do that 4 weeks out of a month, right? And that's about 60,000 potential referrals. Now, I don't know if you've done the math and gone out and seen what it really costs to farm a neighborhood, but to farm a neighborhood of 60,000 people. Now, Brian can probably tell us what that costs. Me and Andrew, there's no way we're going to be able to tell you what it costs, because it was something was unrealistic for me. I don't know about Andrew, but it was for me, right? I couldn't send 60,000 pieces of mail into neighborhoods. So you think about that. Now I got 60,000 potential referrals. Now, what does that mean? We're going to work about 50 weeks a year, because you guys are going to make enough money where you're going to get 2 weeks a year off and go to the Bahamas or wherever you want to go, right? So I want you to grasp this number, because when I did the math on this, it just scared me to death, right? So that's 720,000 potential referrals, right? So let's say we get 0.1%, right? That's 72 units a year, guys. That's freaking huge. So what your goal's got to be to get that database to 100 people and get them qualified. And what I mean by qualified is they know who you are and that you're in the real estate business. So they're thinking about you on a regular basis. All right. So how do we make that happen? And I know I'm going really fast, and we'll talk about this a bunch, but I want you guys to hear this, right? Okay. So once we qualify that database, now what? What do I do? How do I make something work with this? All right. So the first thing we have to learn is this, and if this one slide right here will change your life if you take the time to understand it. Okay. All right. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to prioritize my people. Okay. So that 100 people, I'm going to prioritize them. Who are my best client? Who are my best people? You know, my mom, my cousins, the people I go on vacation with, the people that come to Christmas dinner, right? We're going to consider them what we would call an A+, right? That's going to be the smallest group that you have. That's okay. They're going to bring you the most business, all right? So first thing we're doing is we're going to prioritize those people into A's, A+, A's, B's, and C's. So an A+ is, you know, I go on vacation with them. An A is somebody, if I see them at the restaurant at lunch, I don't have to ask them to sit down. They're friends of mine. They expect me to sit down with them, even if I wasn't invited to that lunch. All right. B's kind of the same thing. I go and see them at a restaurant at lunch. You know, I'm going to go talk to them. I'm going to chat with them, but I don't feel comfortable enough just to sit down, right? Unless I'm invited. Right. And then a C is all those people out there that you know from all these different activities, from high school, from college, from dance class, from soccer, from all those people who are out there are going to be there. And if you start really prioritizing that group, it's going to change everything, because now we prioritize the group for a number one reason. And the number one reason we prioritize that group is so that we can prioritize our time. All right. So here's what I know about most of you guys is you got involved in the real estate business because you wanted freedom. All right. Here's the other thing I know about the real estate business is that, you know, if you set the standard properly in the beginning, you can get some of that freedom. If you don't, you won't be able to. So what we want to do is prioritize our people. So now I can prioritize my time. All right. So once I have my time set up, I'm going to work. This is what here. I'm a dialogue guy. I think Andrew will tell you that about me. I love dialogue, right? And every dialogue I start with every new customer, however I got them, was very simple. I'd say, Andrew, hey, you know, here's the deal. I work Monday through Friday, 9 to 6. I work Saturday from 10 to 2, and I don't work on Sunday. Is that going to be a problem for you? All right. And he's either going to say yes or no, right? You know, I've never had anybody say no, but because I set that standard in the beginning, he's not calling me on Sunday there in the middle of the Cowboy game. Now I know y'all don't watch Cowboys out there, but he's not calling me there in the middle of the Cowboy game, right? And so that's a good thing, right? So I prioritize my time, right? Now here's the critical thing: is now I can prioritize my activities. So my activities are the critical point to get the people I prioritize into a position to generate me a lead. All right. So my activities will create that lead. All right. So how do we do that? So I'm going to tell you, it's pretty simple. All right. What we're going to do is we're going to just put together a real simple 5-step system. Okay. Now the system can get deeper as we get better at it, but you know, it's like anything we do. You know, I'll never forget a story about Vince Lombardi and John Madden. I don't know, some of y'all may be too young for John Madden, but John Madden, he's the guy on the video game. He actually used to be a football coach. He went to a session with Vince Lombardi, who is the greatest Packer coach in the history of time, right? And they spent 8 hours working on one single running football play, which is probably the simplest thing any of us have ever seen. I mean, our Pee-wee kids are doing stuff twice as good as that. But the problem is Vince Lombardi said, here's the deal, is until you can do it perfect every single time, there's no reason to do anything else, right? And that's what we have to get good at. And that's what this system does. It puts you in a position where you got to get good at it and you can't get bored with it. You can't start chasing the little shiny objects that come by because somebody said, oh, by the way, I'm making a ton of money doing this. I'm like, okay, show me your checking account, because until I see it, I'm not believing it. So here's how I did it. Here's how I hope you guys will do it. I learned all this from our good friend, Brian Buffini, so I'm not going to try to take credit for it, but this is how it works. So what we're going to do, before the first day of every month, okay, you're going to send out what we call an item of value. Now, I get my items of value from Buffini and Company, but I've been spending a lot of time in the back end of some of these other systems and on Google, and there's plenty of things out there. So if I was asking a question, I'd say, Kent, what the heck is an item of value? Okay, so an item of value is very simple. It's information that I send out to my database that talks about improving the value of their property. right? I'm not trying to talk them into selling their property. I'm trying to say, hey, look, if you keep your gutters clean, if you make sure that, you don't go 2 or 3 years without painting the outside of the house, if you make sure that the grass, you keep the trees cut up so the grass will grow. I mean, it's the little stuff, right? So the item of value is going to come out and give them item tips and things on how to do that, right? So what it does is it gives me the first touch point of the month. So I've touched my database, my 100 people, right? So I've sent 100 of these items of value out, and I've touched them the first time. Okay, I do that before the first day of the month. Now, the question should be, why? Well, why is this? Because then I'm going to start making a minimum of 5 phone calls a day. Now, I always start with 5 because I know some of the newer guys are dual career and they may not be able to do more than that. But I'm going to start out with 5 phone calls a day. Plus, if you do 5 phone calls a day, 5 days a week, that's 25 phone calls a week. 4 weeks, that's 100. You've talked to everybody in the first month. All right. All right. So I'm going to call these people, and I'm starting with my A+ clients. Now, here's where everybody seems to fail at this. They're like, oh my God, I don't know what to say. That's why we send them the item of value on the first day of the month. Hey, Andrew, did you get that information I sent you on cleaning your gutters? Yes, no, maybe. Okay. Yes, he did. Great. Helpful. That was helpful to you. No, Ken hadn't got it. We'll be looking for it. It's really good information. Maybe there's a stack of mail in there. Well, I really think you should take a look at it. All right. That gives me the purpose to make the phone call. All right. And that's where most of us fail, is we don't understand how to find a purpose to make the phone call. Got to remember, you got 100 guys in your database. They're friends of yours. If they're A+ clients and you can't talk to them 12 times a year, they're not really A+ clients. So make that real clear. Okay. So we make the phone call. Right. The instant I finish the phone call, then I'm going to pick up a handwritten note, and you can see I got a ton of them sitting right here. Here's one we're sending out that goes out today. I write 5 to 10 handwritten notes every day, have for the last 12 years. Okay. Okay. The note is very simple. I just answered the phone with you. We talked about, did you see the item of value? No. Anything going on in your life? Yeah, my kids scored a touchdown this week, or they, had a dance competition. Now I have something to write in the note. Hey man, it was great to hear from you. I'm so excited about your kids' success. Great on the touchdown. Let's go have coffee sometime. That's the note. That's all there is to it. It's a simple thing. So once you make the phone call, you then write the note. Okay. The system is very simple. Uh-huh. Then on the 15th day of the month, we're going to send them out what we call an e-report. Now, the e-report, so if your database is 100, they're going to get it. If your database is 400, they're going to get it too, because this one's not going to cost us anything. We're going to go in and we're going to pull up data, and in most of the cases, we can find data that goes with the item of value. Hey, did you know if you clean your gutters, this will take care of your house? Hey, because you cleaned your gutters, you get a better chance of getting fixed if you have a hailstorm, which I don't know if y'all have them in El Paso. We have them every day here, and get your gutters fixed when you have it. So it's just a simple little report that goes out to them on the 15th day of the month. So look at this, guys. We've touched them with a snail mail, which is the item of value. We've touched them with a phone call. Okay. We've touched them with a note. All right. And now we're touching them with a little email that goes out. Now, here's the thing. Is you got to remember, each time you contact them, somewhere in there, you kind of got to ask them for the referral. And that's where most of us get nervous. So I'm talking to Andrew, and we're going through this thing. I said, man, that was great. I'm glad your kid did so well this weekend. Hey, look, I don't want to keep you, but remember, man, you're a great friend of mine. And if you ever hear anybody looking to buy or sell real estate, I'm never too busy for your referral. That's all I got to say. I don't have to try to talk him into doing anything. I just got to tell him, you're a friend of mine. I appreciate you, and I'm never too busy for your referral. All right. Took all the pressure off of him. I don't ever want Andrew to put his hand on his wallet when my phone number comes across thinking I'm trying to ask him for money, because that's not going to happen. All right. So keep that in mind. Then we're going to spend next week. I'm just going to touch base on this, but we're going to spend next week, because this is probably the most important thing that you can learn to do. is schedule time to deliver what we call a pop by. And I'm going to give you some really, really good examples of that. It's a very inexpensive way to make a huge hit with your database. So that's kind of how that system works. I'll send this to Andrew and Brian so they can post it somewhere where you guys can pull down this slide deck. I think it's pretty critical if you learn how to do it. Right? So I want you to kind of think that. So 5 touches, right? Really simple. Item of value, phone call, note, email on the 15th, pop by sometime during the month. All right. I used to always schedule those on Friday afternoon because I like to run around on Friday afternoon, talk to people because that's who I am. All right. So here's what I always get. How much time do I got left? I got 2 minutes. I'm gonna go through this slide faster than I've ever gone through it in my entire life. Okay. So here's what I always get in this is somebody says to me, Kent, you don't understand. I don't know anybody. I'm like, okay, that's fair. I'm telling you, my system will work whether you know anybody or not. Because somewhere you're going to go into an office and you're going to pick up a phone call off of somebody's sign. You're going to pick up an internet lead. You're going to pick up somewhere. You're going to pick up this lead. So here's what happened. It was August. It was hot as it could be. There was an agent in the office I was working in that decided not to come in that day. So they said, Kent, will you take care of the phones? I said, absolutely. This guy calls me and starts chewing me out. Just like how unprofessional real estate agents are. And so I got 2 choices, hang up on him or just let him vent. So I let him vent. When he was done, I said, sir, I don't know what I did to you, but I'd be more than happy to see if I can help you. Well, what had happened was an agent in a different office had no-showed him on seeing his house 3 different times. I said, look, I'll be there as soon as I can. I'll show you the house. So I get there, I show him the house, I hand him my business card, I get his contact information, and I tell him one thing, Rick. His name's Rick Bowman. This slide's 18 months, by the way. His name's Rick Bowman. I said, hey, Rick, I said, here's the deal. If you call me, I'm going to answer the phone. I don't know that I have the answer you want, but if you call me, you're going to answer the phone. So we go look at the house. Of course, he doesn't like that house. We move on, right? And so I put him in my system. I send him an item of value. I make phone calls. I send him a note. You know, I send the e-report. Every once in a while I would pop by and give him a little something, right? And we did that for about 3 months, right? Right. So Rick finally did this. Rick decided that he wanted to sell his house. So I picked up his house, put the listing in, sold for $295,000. I'm gonna roll through this pretty fast, right? So Rick's now, so he's still getting a call, note, pop by, item value, all the things we do, right? Okay. Next thing he does is he refers me over, or excuse me, since he sold his house, he needed to buy a house. So we bought him another house for $382,000. Sometime we'll have a talk about that because it appraised for $640,000, which was a really cool day. All right. So Rick's still in there, calls, notes, pop buys, items of value. So what does he do? He refers me to his best friend, Gary. Okay. So Gary bought a house for $450,000. Right. So now I put Gary in the system. Okay. I didn't know Gary before I met Rick. I didn't know Rick at all before he made that phone call. Right. So Gary comes in. So now I put him in the system. Guess what Gary does? Gary refers me to his buddy over there, Dennis, who bought a house for $250K. Right. So Dennis is now moving. He actually bought it over FaceTime. Never even walked in the house. That was an interesting day. Right. So he bought it. We get going. I put him in the system. Calls, notes, pop buys. Rick's getting them. Gary's getting them. Dennis is getting them. Right. Now what happens is this. It pops down here, and Dennis's partner Ron decides he wants to buy a house, so he gets one for $300 because Dennis said, "Man, can't take good care of me. Great guy, should talk to him." Right? Just working the system, guys. Calls, notes, pop buys, items, value, emails. That's what we do. Right? So he referred me to his other buddy, Bill, who bought a house for $300,000. Right? Which was a pretty good day. So everybody's now in the system. And remember, I was telling you it was 18 months. Now remember, Rick's still getting everything. I didn't take him out because I got a referral. He's still getting calls, notes, pop buys, all the stuff every month. So he refers me over to his buddy, Matt. Matt had a house at 5331 Joe Wilson Road. I wound up selling that house 3 times in 1 year, which was really cool, right? So Matt, he sells the house for $252,000 to a guy named David, but Matt's he's moving out of town. So I pick up a referral fee on him. He moved to Utah. So I picked a referral fee up on him for $300K. All right. So Matt's still in the system. Not a ton of referrals, but I'll spend 55 cents on mail for anybody that's referred me for $552,000. Right. Right? So he sells the house to a guy named David. All right. So David actually came from another agency. And so I did a little thing we call adopt an agent. So I put a handwritten note in the mailbox when he bought the house. I said, David, here's the deal. I've been here for my entire life. You know, if you need anything, it was a great transaction, very smooth. I appreciate you. You know, if you need a mechanic, a vet, you need to know what restaurant to go to, you're looking for a doctor, whatever, just give me a call. I'll be more than happy to help you. A few months later, David gives me a call. He's ready to sell because his mother-in-law hated it here, and so she decided to move. So we get to downsize David. So David sells the house. That's the second time I sold that house in that year. All right? And David downsizes, and he moves into a house for $196,000. Now remember, everybody's in the system. Rick's in the system. Matt's in the system. Dennis is in the system. Gary's in the system. So guess what Rick does? Rick refers me to his brother Brian. So Brian buys a house for $165,000. He moves his business down south of Dallas County. So he was really excited about it. So guess what? The guys that work for him moved too. So I pick up Brian, refers me to his buddy over here, John. So John just bought a house for $220,000. Okay. So this is 18 months. I didn't know Rick the day he called. I had no idea who he was. No idea. Right. So guess what that was? So just that one phone call was worth $3,365,000 and put a commission in my pocket after split of $94,000. All right. So, you know, if you understand what I'm telling you here, guys, and you understand the way this thing works, this is the fastest way you'll ever get the money. Right. Because you got to remember, you know, and I guess I can escape, right? So if I escape and stop, you'll be able to see me again. I'll be able to see you again. No, I can see you. Yeah. Okay. So you got to remember this, is guys, what you're trying to do is you're trying to create three things. You're trying to make a customer come in and say, can I trust you? Are you good at your job? And do you care about me? Okay. If you can create those three things, guys, they'll give you referrals all day long. Right. Yeah. But if you send them something and once every 6 months, I'm telling you, that there's nothing that broke my heart more as a manager in an office is when somebody would come in and say, Kent, we'd like to sell the house. And I'd say, okay, that's great. Who was your agent? And they're like, I don't remember. I'm like, you went through the mud and the blood and the guts with this guy, and you didn't even take the time to follow up with him? I mean, they're going to sell 3 to 5 houses in their lifetime. So you're only going to do one of them? I mean, guys, here's the thing I love about it is, you know, this is not rocket science. You know, we're not trying to put a man on the moon and get him home in this decade. That ain't what we're doing. You know, all we're doing is looking for a good way for somebody to generate a lead so you and I can make some money. So we'll deep dive into this as we move forward. I'm over 5 minutes. I apologize for that, but I hope you guys learned something. You know, I'm always here to help you. You know, if you need me, you can get to me through Andrew or Brian or anybody. You can look me up on the internet. I'm not very hard to find. You know, that's another thing I say about a real estate agent. Try not to be a secret agent. Try to be an agent that people can find.
Absolutely. And you know, like you say, it's mastery is basics mastered. I mean, it's the end of the day. If you do it, you'll succeed. And the problem is, you know, nobody wants to do it.
Yeah.
No, it's not a secret of how to be successful. It just takes hard work, and it takes determination, and it takes doing it over and over and over again.
And it takes some focus, guys. I mean, we're bombarded every day by all these people out there trying to sell us something, right? You know, here, and I'll tell you, I have a fundamental belief when it comes to leads. You know, if you're willing to go to closing table and get paid at the closing table, I'm willing to listen to your lead generation source. If you want me to pay you money up front, there ain't no way I'm giving you a dime. You know, I mean, it's just the way I feel about it. Now, that doesn't mean it's the right way to do it. It's just I'm an old school guy. I still take notes in a book. I mean, I know that. So, all right, Andrew, what fun, man. I can't wait to see you next week or talk
Absolutely.
to you.
There's a good one this week, guys. Hope you liked it. We'll be continuing our conversation on the contract next week, going over a couple more paragraphs. Make sure you guys get it. feed it to you, how to eat an elephant one bite at a time, which is kind of the same thing as a contract. Then we'll go into some addendums. It's, it just takes reading it, but sometimes having someone there to interpret it just makes life a whole lot easier. So,
and one thing I'll say about the contract, the better you understand the contract, the higher your confidence level is when you're in there talking to somebody. The worst thing you can do is take a contract that you're trying to show to somebody upside down and backwards and get them to sign because they're on the other side of the table, right? And have to turn around and read what they're talking about. You need to go, this is what paragraph 18, section C of the contract says. And you guys will get good at that, but you won't get good at it unless you pick that contract up, put it on the nightstand next to your bed and read it every night before you go to bed. And try not, and if you're the kind of person like I am that falls asleep at page 7, the next night start at page 8.
Absolutely.
You guys have a great week, great weekend. Go make some money. It's greatest country in the world, place we can go make money, having so much fun.
Appreciate it, guys. We'll see you next week, and I'll keep it going.
All right. Andrew, have a great one, buddy.
You too. Appreciate it.